Okay, there we go. Now we're in the game. Welcome into the program, everybody. Make sure you are commenting and all that good stuff wherever you are listening. Of course, just leave it in the comments section. I will read it for you here on the show. If you're on the Instagram, I'll read it for you. If you're on one of the other platforms, I will put it on the screen. So make sure you spell things correctly, folks, because I cannot control the spelling once it's on the screen. Happy Wednesday out there to everybody. I hope everyone's been having a great day, a great Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. A lot of news happening this week, of course, with the Olympics and coronavirus kind of taking over. Got a chance to talk yesterday a little bit about Simone Biles and her dropping out of the Olympics, which has, sort of caused, in a sense, a little bit of angst among those that are fans of competitive sport, if you will. And opening up, sort of the conversation about, hey, did Simone Biles kind of quit on her team? Like, is she somebody that kind of fell short of the expectation of what a good teammate is? So that was separate from the conversation we had yesterday, which was, look, we should be allowing athletes to utilize this platform to say, hey, maybe sometimes I'm not right, you know what I mean? Or sometimes things aren't okay, or that I don't feel totally up to performing. So that was a little bit separate. I think that conversation, just to off of that yesterday, kind of opens up this idea that maybe we should expect more, or we should be okay with expecting more from, some of the act we're used to seeing on the screen. That, a part of being the greatest means that you can't kind of have that break. You can't do that. And if that also means that you must sacrifice a part of your mental sanity to be the greatest, so be it. I mean, there's certainly that argument out there. And so I'm not necessarily willing to throw that totally off the table. That's definitely a discussion when we talk about the culture of sport and competition and things like that. But humans are humans, at the end of the day. It's hard for me to go against that kind of decision as well. So let me know what you think in the comment section for those that didn't get it in yesterday. I know there's a few folks that wanted to get a few more comments in. Anyhow, we do have some headlines for today. Not a real long show today, of course, but some things happening today that kind of tail off of some topics that we talked about a little bit earlier this week. So like I said, make sure you comment in the comment section. In today's headlines, of course, are sponsored by Parkour Therapy. ParkourTherapy.com is where you can check out virtual workouts, easy to follow and easy to do right from your phone. Just check out ParkourTherapy.com right now, and you can check out that Parkour Plus program for free for the first week. Once again, that's ParkourTherapy.com. That's PARCORE Therapy.com. Okay, so before we get into the headlines, I did have a question of the day. This popped up, and this kind of plays within some of the themes that I've been talking about here on the show related to money, work, life, balance, lifestyle, all this other stuff. Of course, we talked about it with Simone Biles yesterday, but a little bit about our own lives as well. Like, do we work so hard in our own lives? Do we grind so hard in our own lives that we kind of lose track of our own true happiness? In a sense, a lot of jobs, a lot of work styles, environments changing and things like that. And so I thought about this. We're going to have more conversations with, some real professionals in this industry coming up in the future. But I wanted to ask this question of you all listening tonight. How much money do you think a month, every month, do you think you would need to live what you would describe as a dream lifestyle? Like, how long do you, or how much money per month do you think that would take? You don't have to answer it now. But throughout the program, if you think about it, if you write down some calculations, if you think to yourself, man, how much in this and how much in that? Do I need this? Do I need that? Like, give me a ballpark figure. So far, some of the responses I've gotten $4,000 a month. That's how much it would take to make someone happy. $4,000 a month to live their dream lifestyle. Somebody else said $6,000 a month. Somebody else said $8,500 a month. Those are the three responses I've got so far on my Facebook. I can't look at the Instagram comments right now, so I'm going to have to give those results tomorrow. But if folks are listening live, let me know how much money do you think it would take to live your dream lifestyle. All right, let's get on to the first headline. This one coming from folks over at Fox News. I say that very facetiously. And Geraldo Rivera, who's a conservative commentator who oftentimes has all the wrong things to say about what the nation is thinking at any particular time. constantly, he's the guy that's like, hey, Trayvon Martin, shouldn't have been in that neighborhood, for example, or something like that, or he shouldn't have been buying Skittles. Like, he'll always find the point that nobody cares about, that nobody's concerned about, that nobody's watching, and he'll play on some sort of conservative angle of that point. That's what Geraldo Rivera's purpose typically is. If there is a pot of poo, if you will, it's Geraldo Rivera's job to take a stick and to stir the pot of poo to make it somehow even grosser and stinkier and nastier than it was before. In a nutshell, that's like his job. Anyway, he's on a Fox News panel today. And we've been talking a little bit this week about like how conservatives have kind of been stepping away from, this idea that the coronavirus is a joke, that it's a hoax, that it's unreal, that it's not really killing people the way that the media or the doctors or that Anthony Fauci is saying that it is. The conservatives have been kind of stepping away from this, even though they're kind of clinging tightly to other very Trumpian sort of ideals. This is one that they do seem to be okay with stepping away from a little bit. But this next phase of America, where I explained earlier this week as well, that it's going to kind of divide into two Americas. We're simply going to have America for the vaccinated, America for the unvaccinated. And that's going to mean different things, right? I think in those situations, those Americas that it's going to create, the groups that are going to find themselves on either side of the line might surprise you. It might surprise you. But a large portion of the unvaccinated individuals in the United States right now, still to this point, are people that would probably call themselves conservatives. Not all unvaccinated people are conservatives, but a lot of conservatives are on the unvaccinated train. And so on a panel discussion about the CDC, issuing these new guidelines this week, saying, look, we actually now recommend, that people, even individuals who have been vaccinated previously, we now actually recommend that these people wear masks indoors because of the Delta variant and its spread among unvaccinated people. And so Fox News, of course, tries to run this segment where they say, oh, there's so many things that are untrustworthy about the CDC because of this. This is exactly what we talked about yesterday, right? When the information changes, what is the easy attack, right, for a conservative to say? The easy attack is to say, well, look, the CDC is throwing so many rules at you, you can never keep up. Why wear a mask if they can't decide whether you should wear one now or later, or now, not now, but before or in the future? Who knows, right? There's so much information. It's confusing. I can understand why you just wouldn't want to wear a mask at all, right? It's a little bit Trumpian too, right? Like throw so much information into the center of the conversation that people become overloaded and confused and say, you know what, I'd rather stay out of it. It's the real problem with voting rights, in my opinion. But anyway, that's a separate conversation. Fox News runs this segment. Geraldo Rivera comes on and he's like, look, I don't know if I'm down with this. This kind of seems stupid that there are people at this point that are unvaccinated. And it kind of sets off this whole reaction. Again, for the people on Instagram, I'll repeat this for you guys right after this. I'll play it for the folks listening on the other mediums. Here is a little clip of what he had to say on Fox News. Geraldo Rivera.
Greg, to say that the demonization of the unvaccinated, it's not appropriate. You have to understand that if you're unvaccinated, then you should at least get tested every week on your own, or understand why you are banned from the VA, why you are banned from restaurants, why you are banned from other businesses and colleges increasingly, and they should be, because it's selfish. If you're unvaccinated and you're going around without being tested, you are an arrogant, selfish SOB.
You have proof of that? Do you have proof? You were asking for proof from Jesse. What's your proof that people are wandering around willy-nilly spreading the disease? You sound like you don't have any evidence.
No evidence that unvaccinated people. I have it. Here's you want
evidence?
I'm
sorry. Wait, there's more. Let's go back.
99% of the people sick in the hospitals in Los Angeles County of COVID were unvaccinated. How's that for proof?
No, you know what else is proof?
Boom.
What if people are immunocompromised and can't get the vaccine? Have you thought about that?
No, have you thought about that? I love that. I love that. This was kind of a moment that surprised a lot of people. Who was trending on social media earlier. Like, wait a minute, Geraldo Rivera, who is usually making a bad situation even worse. He's the guy that pours gasoline on a forest fire. This guy, as a conservative, is saying that unvaccinated people are arrogant and irresponsible. Whoa, 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 whoa. There's clearly a shift. Even if you're not familiar with Geraldo Rivera or why this is even significant for him to say this on the medium that he said this in, you got to understand that there is a significant portion of the people who are unvaccinated that are conservative. They don't have a scientific objection to the vaccination. They have a Trump exemption to the vaccination. And what I mean by that is that they don't exactly have a good valid scientific reason as to why it would be harmful to them or why they feel that it is a risk. They don't, as a matter of fact, understand the risk, I think, behind the vaccine at all. They're simply against the vaccine because it's a part of the conservative culture to be anti-vax, right? And now there is this looming reality that the unvaccinated people are the only ones dying in this country. Now conservatives are like, geez, I mean, so many people are unvaccinated people rather are conservatives that we've got to eventually lay with this sort of idea, right? That we perpetrated this idea that people shouldn't really trust vaccinations, at the very least, people shouldn't trust them right from the gate. People shouldn't be rushing out to get them. And now the only people dying from them are unvaccinated. They're trapped. There's a lot of, Republican governors around the country that are saying to themselves, look, go out and get vaccinated. Look, I have nothing else to say about this. Like, there are people in our country that are dying at a great rate. Infection rates are back up. We're at risk of having to institute mask mandates and vaccination passports and things like that. So please go get vaccinated, which is a severe turn from where we were just a few months ago. Could things be changing among the conservatives? Could they be feeling the shift in the winds? But if so, what is the real effect here? After months and months of saying, look, hoax. This isn't nearly what the Democrats and what the left and what Dr. Fauci has been making it out to be, to now have to pivot back to a situation where you say, actually, it is kind of serious. And actually, I'd like you to really take this seriously. And I think it's really important for you to take this vaccine that I called a sham and a government control scheme system before. Forget all that stuff that I said before. It's kind of hard. But we're nearing that argument, from conservatives very quickly. And this was sort of a symbol of that. Hearing Geraldo say that was kind of a symbol of that. What happens? The big question is, what happens if and when conservatives sort of fully adopt this idea? Both, leadership and media and everything else like that kind of gets on the train of, we should be telling people to get vaccinated. What happens to that vaccination bubble? Because not everyone, as I mentioned, within that unvaxxed bubble is simply a conservative that just objects purely on that, right? Maybe a large enough percentage of this population will eventually, in good time, get vaccinated. But now there's a new thing sort of looming here. We got a report today that said that Pfizer is reporting that a booster shot could help your immunity. A booster shot to your already immunized body could actually help you defend against the Delta variant and some other things. That the original shot, it's still doing its thing, right? But if you want further protection, if you want that extra protection, then a booster shot could help. And I can already kind of see this becoming a storyline, X amount of time down the line, a couple of months, let's say, where people start to be infected with the Delta variant who have been vaccinated at least once, right? I can just see this happen. I'm not saying this will happen, but I can see this happening. They've been vaccinated once. People start getting infected at a slightly higher rate and a slightly higher rate again and again and again. And people are going to say, well, see, you told us that the vaccines were effective, and now it shows that the Delta variant and other variants are pushing right through it. And then the CDC is going to say, well, we recommend getting a booster shot. And they're going to say, see, you said booster shot. We didn't need a booster shot before. Now we need a booster shot. Which is it, CDC? You're trying to trick us with another game? I can see all this stuff coming down the line because people don't have their mind made up about who they're going to trust about this situation just yet. It reminds me that every time that we come to a change in what the CDC might recommend, that it's not just for fun. The CDC is not just doing this because they like playing with our minds. There hasn't been a worldwide pandemic in like 100 years, so they've been bored or something. That's not what's going on here. The CDC changes recommendations is because the situation has indeed changed. Either what they know about the coronavirus has changed, or our behavior in some way, shape, or form has changed. After all that, we do have to take this thing seriously. This is not, I think, something that we should continue to politicize. And again, I'm not talking about just left and right. If you are unvaccinated at this point, you are holding out against, I think, something that becomes very obvious in this time right now. And it is not that you're going to turn into a zombie later. What if I turn into a zombie, or what if I develop health complications 4 or 5 years down the line? I think you've got to understand, if you're unvaccinated at this point, or if you're trying to explain to somebody who is unvaccinated at this point, that you are quite literally holding up progress. In this moment, we've got to be, I've said this before on the show, we've got to be ahead of the virus. The virus has continually shown for the last year and a half that it is ahead of humanity. The virus is willing to go and to do things that humanity is unwilling to defend itself against. Plain and simple. I think that we have seen that time and time again. And just because we are on what seems like the latter half of the pandemic doesn't mean that we can sort of, forget that we can take that off the board and just pretend like whatever. To America, so what? Unvaccinated and vaccinated. I'm forever unvaccinated. Who cares? I don't want to turn into a zombie. Whatever. That's fine. Your body, your choice. And I've always said that you should make up your own mind about this. But as much as you can, if you take the politics out of the situation, if you think about what your individual responsibility is in this particular case, you start to kind of understand, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but you start to understand where Geraldo Rivera is coming from. And you start to say, man, this is kind of selfish at this point. 60, 70% of the country has gone through this, has taken this risk that you are unwilling to take as a way of moving forward as a society, not as a trend, not as a mind control experiment. Nobody cares about that. But as something that they're willing to do. This percentage, the majority of the population is willing to take this risk, but there's still a bubble of people that aren't. And though that bubble of people is going to be what impacts what happens with the coronavirus down the line, meaning we're going to have to deal with the coronavirus down the line in fall and in winter again. And when I'm telling you, when this variant changes and it starts attacking people who have already been vaccinated and people start losing faith in the whole thing all over again, I'm going to point back to this day and say, see, I called this. We talked about this. Don't panic. It doesn't do anybody any good to panic in this situation. And listening to instructions, also, I should just add this in, listening to instructions or listening to recommendations, on behalf of the CDC is not some sort of, mind control. I keep seeing people say that it's the government's way of trying to see if you'll just do it, trying to see if you'll listen. It's like, come on, man. People got other things to do. Governments have other things to do. All right. On the other side, I'll talk about infrastructure and why that is not exactly the best idea to be discussing, I guess, from a national perspective, and another idea from a representative about homelessness that's actually a really good idea we should be talking about after this quick break. Don't go anywhere. A break from our sponsors, Parkour Therapy, right now, and we'll be right back after this.
Look in the mirror. Tell me what you see. It's you. Only you can decide to forget about yesterday's failures and focus on today and tomorrow's success. We all share the same 24 hours. Your dreams won't chase you. Chase your dreams. Don't allow the world to run you. Run the world. Don't talk about the ladder. Climb it. Don't dip your toe into the pool. Dive in. That's the only way you'll learn how to swim. It all starts with you. And in the end, only you can change you.
Appreciate our sponsors, Parkour Therapy, parkourtherapy.com. For more information on that, let me know what you think in the comment section of anything that we've talked about so far. Let's get into a little politics tonight, too. Of course, this infrastructure bill, you might have heard something about it in the general atmosphere, but there's an infrastructure bill that Democrats hope to craft and pass in the next couple of months. It's relatively boring, the infrastructure bill, and the general process about politicians passing bills is generally boring. And it's not because of the democratic breakdown, like how America works in this process. I mean, that's just history, that's civics and all that other stuff. It's generally boring because they typically never take on anything that would really have an impact on people nationwide. Some of the issues that we talk about most often in discussion spaces like this are not really on the table, if you will. They're kind of on the table, but in theory. And a perfect example of that, I read this in the Huffington Post, and I thought, hey, wow, what a really good idea this certainly looks like. Cori Bush, who was actually an activist in, I believe, Ferguson, Missouri, who won a seat, she earned a seat in Congress, in the state of Missouri, obviously. She calls on Congress to end homelessness through a bill that she is calling the Unhoused Bill of Rights. The Unhoused Bill of Rights. She had a whole press conference for it today, sort of announcing some of the things that would go into. Here's how the HuffPost put it. That the resolution is called the Unhoused Bill of Rights, demands that the federal government declare homelessness a public health emergency and make significant investments in creating more affordable housing and supportive services for unhoused people. It's the first such federal resolution, and it is largely symbolic, as HuffPost puts it. And that is important here, that this is not something that is likely to pass. And when I say that, and you look at that headline, ending homelessness, which group exactly, which members of Congress are so opposed to ending homelessness that something like this couldn't pass? For what most of us know about how Congress works, that is a perfectly viable question. When you go into the meat and potatoes of it, why wouldn't Congress have any sort of motivation to end homelessness? If you understand how homelessness affects a lot of other aspects of a city, right? Like the actual homeless people themselves obviously have a bevy of issues to deal with, but what also homelessness does on the strain and the stress of a particular neighborhood, how it impacts poverty, how it impacts, the people that live there. And I'm just talking about homelessness. This is just one issue here. But when you think about the ripple effects of what addressing homelessness might actually look like here in this country, you really start to open up the possibilities of how much power Congress has if indeed they pursued things just like this. But Rep. Cori Bush's Unhoused Bill of Rights will fall on deaf ears. It will not pass. It will not even probably make it to a point where we're making any sort of serious decisions on this, and that is sad. Cori Bush is a Democrat, and a Democrat is in power right now, and it brought up this question to me as I'm looking at this, and I'm looking through all this boring infrastructure news. Because I'll be honest with you, it's boring. It sucks. It's a lot of like, well, Democrats want $3.4 billion for this. Well, Republicans want this thing too, but they want $1 billion. And Republicans are going to talk to Democrats about lowering the 3.4 to 1. And the Democrats are going to resist that, and they say they want to spend 3.2 instead of 3.4, and that'll be a concession. It's like reading about stuff like that. It's just like, oh, come on. I mean, this isn't even representative of like how Americans think about issues like this. It's the issues of the haves and the have-nots oftentimes, not the haves and the have-mores, or the have-less and the have-even-lesser. It's the haves and the have-nots oftentimes in this in this conversation. What Corey Bush is bringing up here is an issue of housing. Do you have housing or do you not have housing? It's an on or off proposition. These are the things that we talk about. Now, infrastructure bill, which in some way, shape, or form, people are going to argue does address housing in some way, shape, or form, through a number of things, down the line, trickle-down money programs formed. It might be years before, if they pass this bill tomorrow, it might be years before this infrastructure bill actually gets to some of the projects that it pledges to get to, whether it's $3.4 billion or $1 billion or whatever. Who cares? And so it's hard for me to get into news about that kind of stuff. It's boring. It sucks. This is the kind of stuff that I like this idea. An unhoused Bill of Rights? Yeah, that makes sense. Let's actually get to addressing these issues. Let's use the power of the federal government to address the things that we say every day in our neighborhoods, that we say, look, this sucks. I don't want this anymore. This is having a bad effect on how I live life. Can Congress be that body where instead of discussing, infrastructure, something that everybody likes, something that's politically cool or whatever, instead of doing that, can we go back to putting money into the pockets of people that need money, giving houses to the people that don't have houses? I think about this a lot. This dichotomy exists a lot when we have these discussions about legislation going through Congress or whatever, and you turn on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, and you see these stories about this kind of stuff. I mean, this is where the coverage is soaked up in the political gamesmanship of it all. But what part of the game is it when Rep. Corey Bush unveils something so obvious to everyone, something that everyone should have a vested interest in ending? What part of the game is this when this isn't even introduced? This won't even be taken seriously. How can I take you seriously as a representative in that case? I'm not going to talk about infrastructure tonight. If folks want to go back and check out what's going to be in this massive infrastructure bill, which, by the way, is going to be passed either way. That's the spoiler alert. Sorry for those that, wanted to see how this thing played out. Infrastructure is a moderate topic, right? When you put a word like that on it, it's something that everyone can agree on. It's not controversial. It's also not very impactful as well. So this money will pass. This legislation will pass. I promise. It's just a matter of how much money is going to be spent on it. The real discussion should be on issues like homelessness. The real discussion should be on issues like poverty. I asked the question a little bit earlier, and I'll ask it again here towards the end of the show because I would like to know how people feel about this. But how much money per month do you need to live your dream lifestyle? Think about this question. There's a reason behind this. We've gotten various answers. Some have said $4,000, $6,000, $8,000, $8,500 a month. What would it take for you? What would it take for you in earnest to be truly happy on a monthly basis? I mean, all the things that you really, really want. That question is something that you're going to come up with a figure, right? And I'd love to know what you guys' numbers are. I don't know what mine is. It's interesting. I keep going back and forth between I don't know. I think I'd be happy with $5,000 a month. I think I could do everything that I want with $5,000 a month. And then there's other times when I'm like, you know what? That number should be 10. That number should be $10,000. Why not? Why have $5,000 when you can have $10,000 a month? And then whenever I really start thinking about it, well, shoot, this is an unlimited question, right? I can have as much money. This is how much money do I need to feel happy and safe and secure? If I'm really hacking $10,000 a month, maybe I should double that and add a little bit more, $25,000 a month, and I'll be for sure safe and secure. But if I really want to invest into the future and possibly have some other things that maybe people around me are safe and secure with, maybe I need $40,000 or $50,000 a month, right? And that you could keep going on that train again and again and again and again, all the way up. And I think the people that have been given keys to that super highway, or been given access rather to that super highway, have driven on that highway, and they've gone as fast as they can go because there are no limits. When you start saying to yourself, how much do you need in a monthly basis? How much do you really need to be happy, to live your dream lifestyle? It's an ever-expanding idea. It's a trick question, in a sense. Because that number is unlimited. That number will always go up. We live in a country that rewards people that chase that high number. We reward people that chase the dream. We say to people, what is your dream? You can do anything you want in America. You could reach as high as you want in this country. And if you fall short of that, then that is indicative of your effort in life, how good you were at whatever it is, how valuable you were to society. If you died a poor person, then I guess that's what you contributed. You didn't really contribute much to society. Sorry. But if you die a mega rich billionaire that can fly him or herself to space, then I guess you did something with your life. I guess you're valuable in this country. It's a sliding scale that when you think about it like that, you're like, damn, well, I don't know if I necessarily want to be judged like that. I mean, of course I want nice things, but what does that really mean for me? Does that mean me just having more? Because the government seems to be taken out of the conversation about having an actual lifestyle that you can enjoy and something that is rich and fulfilling, if you will. The government is certainly into the conversation of, let's set the game for how much money you can make. We'll set the rules for the game for how much money you can make, and good luck on your journey. But are we really invested in any way, shape, or form in making the experience of the people any better? The people that live here any better? As we talk about these boring subjects like infrastructure come up, let's not lose focus on the fact that representation does have the ability to inject us with more life than talking about, are we going to have, 3 or 4 less cracks in the road on our way home from our job that doesn't pay us enough, and our lifestyle that we are truly unhappy with? That's not the discussion that we should be having. And I think that we can have a better discussion about a better lifestyle in this country, and better representation is one of those things that I think can help get us to that point. But anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section. I appreciate everyone for joining me in on the live stream. If you're watching this on the replay, please give us a share on your timelines, on your stories, anywhere that you can share this link that you're watching this right now. Please do. It would do the show a great service. Make sure you follow Nichols Worth on Spotify and Anchor, and if you can, become a member. Of course, you can give a monthly donation or a one-time donation if you would like, right there on anchor.fm. It would go a long way to, of course, making this show better, and of course, continuing to bring the news, politics, pop culture, and sports to the airwaves of the internet, I guess you could say, every single day. So appreciate the folks out there for listening. I'll see you guys tomorrow for another edition of A Nichols Worth. All right, everybody, peace.